things are that your life and your choices are predetermined. It's like, how do you take like people? How do you make people responsible for their actions? It's really hard to fight against determinism. Like, I hate to say it, it's one of those philosophies where it's kind of just like, fuck you. No, I have free will, man. Don't say that. Like, I chose to be this drugs. I chose to do those drugs. Like, yeah, like, because, like, but they can argue that, like, yeah, you were born in this situation. This is what your mother did. This is what your father did. This is what your genetics say. And these were all the events leading up to your life leading up to this choice. You were more than likely going to make this choice. It was already predetermined, you know? But then, like, when you have that argument that, like, things are that your life and your choices are predetermined, it's like, how do you take, like, people, how do you make people responsible for their actions?
I feel like that just comes up to a societal perception.
Okay, well, if we're going off of societal perception, we have a justice system that says that we have free will, though.
Well, yeah, and that's, I guess, kind of what you have to go with. The whole purpose of laws is to accommodate the masses. So yeah, getting back to it. So yeah, the whole purpose of laws, though, is to put into place rules that are socially acceptable by the masses. So, like, I feel like that wouldn't really work in that case.
But the thing is, though, is that you said earlier that you agree with determinists that your fate and, like, what you choose can be predetermined by your circumstances. So how can these laws be just if people can't be held accountable for their actions?
Shit, I might have to go back on my switch up real quick. I don't know.
Yeah, see, it's like, that's where it's like tricky, because it's like, mathematically you can, and like with science too, you can prove that people almost don't have free will. Like, you can basically,
No, go finish your point. I actually thought of something.
Like with neuroscience and with like math and statistics, you can basically predetermine what someone is going to choose and what their responses and reactions are going to be. So how can you hold people accountable for their actions? Like, if you already know what they're going to do, you know? If it's basically predetermined by their previous lives.
The thing though, why I did switch over to determinism is because you said it's a very heavy influence based off of our past is a very heavy influence on what decisions we'll make. So I do agree with that standpoint of determinism. So that's kind of like why I switched over, because it's not necessarily saying like, oh, this is going to happen, but because of these things that happen, I'm more likely to go down.
More likely. Yeah. And that's
so
kind
I feel
of
like that does give you some form of accountability, because like you have to, like, just because you're more likely to do something doesn't mean you're not like you have to do it, you know.
But the thing is that like they've done studies like on people to like figure out like how their body would like move and react to stuff, and when they study their brains, their brains give off responses that they're going to move certain parts of their body before they're even consciously aware that they're going to do it, you know. So it's like
that's just they're just looking at patterns like of brain frequencies and to help do that prediction.
Yeah, but like the thing is like with all those predictions, like subsequently, like if you add like all of them up, you can predetermine the way how someone is going to like live their life and what their patterns and habits are going to be, because if you have enough data previously, you can then predict the future, because you can just continuously gather data from there, you know.
I mean, you can make a very good educated guess. It's not necessarily going to make accurate predictions just because of like what happens. There's always outliers.
I think so too. And like I'm not a determinist myself, you know, like I don't believe in determinism, like just so like we're all clear. Like it's just very like it's a hard argument, dude, because like there is so much math and like data and like science like backing up that we don't actually have free will, that it's hard to believe we do, because the biggest argument for there again like that free will exists is that it feels an awful lot like we're free, you know.
Well, then this kind of goes into a question when it comes to like determinism of why we think we have free will and why we make certain choices, that would have to go into the concept of morals and ethics, which is something that's not quantifiable.
Yeah.
When you're trying to say that like statistics show like we're more likely to do something because of this, because of like our previous experiences, but morals and ethics vary based off of what part of the world you grow up in. So how can determinism account for that?
I guess, but determinism would basically account for just that culture. Like, that's another just variable. You know what I mean? Like, the culture of like what you're surrounded by is just another variable in the scope of determinism. It's just another part of the equation that would add to it. If you just are able to find all of the factors that make up somebody's life, determinism says you could, with 100% accuracy, predict what their next move is going to be.
Okay, but then how does that play into the concept of good and bad, though? Because
Well,
the whole
because-
reason why we have morals and ethics is to help us tell us what we believe to be good and what we believe to be
Because
bad.
it's like, let's say you take like someone who, I hate to use this example, the 9/11 terrorists. Like, how do you hold them accountable if they were born into this country that was where they were brainwashed, just quote unquote, they were influenced to commit these actions, and they were going to be surrounded by that their entire life. How do you hold them accountable for those actions? How do you make them bad people when basically they'd had no control over what they could believe because of what they were surrounded by?
No, I mean, the thing is, that's
Are
the
they
whole point I'm
more?
trying to
Are they
make, is that
ethically bad people because they just are ignorant?
well, it's not necessarily there. I feel like when you want to talk about ethically bad, it's all subjective. Because in their mind, they're not ethically wrong. They're doing the right thing that they believe. In our minds, it's like what the hell? This just doesn't make sense, and it's not like acceptable.
Yeah.
So that's why it becomes really sticky with this whole concept of ethics and morals, where how can you predetermine fate based off of like statistics when ethics and morals will vary based off of where you grow up in?
Yeah, that's true. And like ultimately it does come like all down to perspective, but like we have there has to be some kind of baseline for like morals and ethics where it's just like, I don't know, you just don't kill each other, man. Like out of like spite and like anger and shit, you know?
Yeah, but I mean that's
like
depending on where you grow up.
Yeah,
bro.
absolutely.
And it depends on the time period too.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I mean, I'm some people might disagree that it's still going on today, but back in the day, people would just kill each other just because, hey, I want your land, I want what you got, give it to me now.
Yeah, it's true. But like I'm saying, like we have a justice system that says that we have free will. But when you're mathematically able to calculate like the way how someone's able to grow up and think, like how do you put someone in jail and punish them for an action that they basically had no control over?